Hello, and welcome to Supt Scoop. I'm your host, the proud superintendent of the Mount Vernon City School District, Dr. Kenneth R. Hamilton. Joining me today is our Assistant Superintendent of School Improvement, Dr. Bennett-Conroy. She'll be talking about some extraordinary news for the very first time since my arrival here as superintendent. All of our elementary and middle school students are designated as schools in good standing by the New York State Department of Education. Then I am excited to welcome Mount Vernon High School Principal Gonzalez to the show. Together, we will talk about the progress that has been made in improving Mount Vernon High School and what is going to take place in the coming months to reach the last two benchmarks that will make Mount Vernon High School a school in good standing. But first, let's take a look at some of the things that have been happening in our school since our last show. Traphagen Elementary students completed their first Lego tournament on the third competition that represented 12 schools from across Westchester County at the Chappaqua Robert E. Bell Middle School. It was the first of the team of 10 third through sixth grade students at Traphagen School and the Mount Vernon City School District. Now that Traphagen has brought the initial team, the district is anticipating more teams to compete next year and in future years. The goal of the competition is to teach elementary and middle school age students how to use science, engineering, and math skills to solve world problems. Winners of the competition will be a part of a tournament that will be a part of a national competition. Traphagen students competed under the team name of Mount Vernon Bots. Although the Mount Vernon Bots didn't place in the competition, the students earned valuable experience and knowledge in programming and building robots for next year's competition. The FFL event included 3 portions: robot design, core values, and project demonstration, each followed by a Q&A with a panel of judges, including Traphagen School Principal Carol Quinones Smith. We are extremely proud of our Traphagen students who today forged a new path for future elementary and middle school students in the district to choose a challenging, rewarding, and fun way to learn. Moving across the district to Columbus School, we recently completed a $1 million renovation to the historic auditorium. The project included the addition of surround sound theater-style seating and a functioning balcony for the first time since 2002. We are excited to unveil the state-of-the-art auditorium with a ribbon-cutting ceremony on Wednesday, January 19th. As part of the district's 2020 Vision Capital Improvement Project, the recent renovation was the first of the space since the building was constructed in 1924. Additional plans for renovations include preserving original fresco murals from 1934 by Mount Vernon artist Louise Brand. Following the ribbon cuttings, Columbus students in grades 1 through 6 gathered in the space for a positive behavioral intervention and support assembly. This PBIS initiative has been very successful in our district. During the assembly, students witnessed performances by the school's drumline and band, as well as remarks consistent with the PBIS model to reinforce positive behavior from Columbus School Principal Dr. Colleen Crawford. The newly renovated space will be used for daily morning meetings, where all students and staff will convene. In addition, the family and friends of Columbus School's class of 2020 will gather in the space for the first graduation of the newly configured K-8 school. Here in the Mount Vernon City School District, we remain committed to implementing culturally responsive, sustaining practices to support our multilingual families. One example of our efforts to foster inclusiveness is the English as a Second Language program at Lincoln School. Parent liaison Mrs. Sandra O'Connor, in collaboration with the English as a New Language teacher, Susan Lombardi, identified a great need in the Lincoln School community to foster and provide classes for our Arabic-speaking families. In consultation with the Office of School Improvement under the leadership of Dr. Bennett-Conroy, Mrs. O'Connor and Mrs. Lombardi have worked together to establish a partnership to establish this great need. The goal of the Lincoln School program is to enhance parents' listening, speaking, reading, and writing skills in English so that they can successfully participate in the everyday lives of their children inside and outside of school. The parents and guardians for whom English is not their first language expressed an interest in increasing their English-speaking language abilities to deepen the connection between home and school. The Mount Vernon City School District is excited that parents and guardians have the opportunity to increase their ability to communicate in English. The goal is to foster a sense of belonging among Arabic parents so that they feel comfortable in first, helping their children with their schoolwork, secondly, interacting with their school community, and thirdly, conversing with school staff. The program has approximately 25 parents and guardians in regular attendance. Classes take place twice per week for 2 hours each session for a total of 12 weeks. Families can contact the parent liaison at Lincoln School, Mrs. Sandra O'Connor, to register for these free classes. And there are so many exciting things happening in our schools and communities. No wonder that schools from across the state are seeking our counsel for best practices on transformation. That is why I'm excited to welcome my friend, my sister, Dr. Bennett-Conroy, to the show. We'll be right back with Dr. BC. Welcome back. Joining me now is our Assistant Superintendent for School Improvement, Dr. Bennett-Conroy, better known as Dr. BC. Welcome to Supt Scoop.
Thank you, Superintendent.
So we just received some great news from the New York State Department of Education that our schools have been officially recognized as schools in good standing. What does that mean from a state perspective? What does good standing mean?
Well, good standing means that all our schools have met the academic requirement desired by the New York State Department.
And why is that so extraordinary for Mount Vernon?
Because Mount Vernon City School District has been on a journey. And the entire journey was that to get schools off the list and get students up to in good academic achievement process. However, since you came here, one of your goals was that you want parents and students to have a good educational experience. So under that experience, we ventured on 3 different things. We went on strategic planning. We went to the state to do our school comprehensive plan, and we met with school leaders to talk about their literacy practices. And underneath those areas, we went a little bit further, and we talk about academic support. We talk about analyzing our data. We talk about partnerships. We talk about grant funding. And we talk about family and community engagement. It means that we reach out to the community to see how we can improve our students' academic needs. So that is great for Mount Vernon because the journey is long, it's bittersweet, and now we have nearly come to the end of it. We are in that nearly all our schools are in good standing.
And you say nearly. We have one school, our comprehensive high school. In our next segment, I'm going to actually have Mr. Gonzalez, the principal of Mount Vernon High School, to talk about where we are related to those indicators that still need to be met. But one of the things that happened in our journey, as you describe it, was the establishment of the Office of School Improvement. So you already captured a lot of what happens in your office, but you were tasked with identifying those strategies that would help us address some of the academic inadequacies we had in our district. So what has been some of those partnerships that has led to these kinds of results?
Well, some of these partnerships is that we have consultants that came in, and some were academic, some were data-driven. And the academic piece was based on balanced literacy, and that is something that you wanted, that we didn't have in the district. Guided practice with our teachers. And we also have the data-driven consultants who came in and work with our teachers and work with our principals. We also have, we work with different organizations or CBOs in the community. For example, we have the Youth Bureau have different programs that comes in our school districts, and we work with them. But we also ensure that nobody works in silo. What we ensure is that everybody's going to follow the our school curriculum. And we also have more after school. For example, we have the Academic Power Hour, wherein that students who are being tutored will definitely continue what's enforced in the day. And in the afternoon, those kids who are coming from the enrichment are students who are like level 3s and level 4s and need to be challenged. And you ensure that that happens. So with that being said, we're seeing more level 3s and more of our students are level 3s and level 4 students coming up.
And those level and 3 indicators are indicative of students meeting and or exceeding state proficiency levels.
Right, correct.
So the Office of School Improvement is really all-encompassing in that you've heard me talk a lot about making sure that our programs and services extend beyond the school day and bringing our parents in, because once the bell rings, kids go home, and if there is not a connection, a strong connection between school and home, a lot of that is lost. The brain drain, if you will, gets compromised significantly. What has your office done related to family and community engagement that has been a part of this journey to our success?
Well, first of all, you challenged my department to get parent liaisons. So we have like 7 to 8 parent liaisons that goes out and meet with the parents and have workshops for them. But we also have a consultant who works with them using the Karen Map model to ensure that parents knows how to help their child when they get home. So with that piece being enforced, we also have, we went to different conferences and we came home with different ideas, because you challenged me that this is a new position and you want everybody to be successful. I was a little bit nervous with that. However, I have to say that that was a great idea. Not because I'm in the job, but it was a great idea. But the consultant came in, followed the Karen Map model. We have workshops for our parents, and we try to help them to understand, how to help their kids. For example, you have the Arabic families who came in, who said, well, 25 of them said we want to help our children, but we do not know the English language very well. So what can you do? And I went to you and you said, okay, go ahead and do what you have to do to empower them and educate them to help their kids. So that was one piece of it. But we also work very heavily with our CBOs. And our CBOs are in the community from pre-K up, and they help us to follow the same curriculum that we have to make sure that everything was successful.
So these wraparound services, including some of our social service agencies, along with our CBOs, our community-based organizations, have also been a part of this journey. Having our schools get off the list is extraordinary, particularly when there is so much diversity across our school district, and some of our schools have significant needs. And I'll talk about Edward Williams, for example, because they were just featured on News 12 last night, as a matter of fact, because the demographics in that community is particularly challenging. That feat for them to be on par with some of their other peers is a huge challenge. Let's talk about how we've made certain that we provide services across the continuum so that those youngsters who are the neediest youngsters in our community get the same access and resources as those at the other end of the continuum, and how we continue to enrich them. So how have you differentiated your resources to those schools across the continuum in our district?
This is when we decided that we are going to meet with school leaders and talk about their literacy practices. Because not all school leaders' literacy practices are basically the same, because not every school have the same needs. So when we did that, and we continue to do that, we came up with the different fundings in our grants, and we give different schools the different funding for what they need. We listen to the principals, we listen to the teachers, and we provide consultants and to come in and address those needs.
I think that's extraordinary news, and I know we have a huge culminating activity around celebrating this, because it is historic, because for the first time since the state has been maintaining this data in Mount Vernon schools, with the exception of our high school, has met these indicators. But the journey continues, because once you get in good standing, it's even harder to maintain that work. And we still have a long way to go. So I don't want anyone walking away thinking that our job is done and we've reached the pinnacle of success. From my point of view, until every youngster is at the highest level of proficiency, our work must continue. What do you have in store for this district and this community to celebrate this recent accomplishment?
Well, on May 11th, we are going to celebrate district-wide, and we want all our partners, our stakeholders, to be on board. And we are going to have more or less like a carnival wherein that we are going to go through all the entire city of Mount Vernon. And we have a committee right now divided into 4 different sections, and everybody's planning and everybody's happy. And on that day, we're going to finish at homes with a carnival. We're going to have a motorcade throughout the city. We're going to have all our different stakeholders on board. We are also going to invite other school districts who said, we want to be on board with you. We will be inviting other state officials who said, whenever you celebrate, I want to be there. So we're going to invite them, and we are going to have a grand time in the city with our kids and with our parents, with our stakeholders, and with our administrators and teachers.
Well, I can't thank you enough for, first of all, being on Supt Scoop, but more importantly, for your outstanding leadership in the Office of School Improvement and how that has had such a positive impact on our schools, our district, and ultimately our community. So thank you so much for joining us today.
And thank you for empowering me to do the things that I do.
Coming up next, we will have Mr. Gonzalez. He will be talking to us about some of the extraordinary things that are happening in our schools, in Mount Vernon High School in particular, how we are bringing the International Baccalaureate program into the district, and what kinds of new programs have been added to our CTE, Career and Technology Education Centers and offerings here at Mount Vernon High School, and the plans for addressing those 2 remaining indicators that will put Mount Vernon High School in good standing. We'll be right back with Mr. Gonzalez. Welcome back. Joining me now is the principal of Mount Vernon High School, Mr. Gonzalez. Welcome back to Supt Scoop.
Thank you, Dr. Hamilton. Good to be back.
You're no stranger to this chair or this show or this room for that matter.
That's quite right.
So you're here today to talk about some things that are going on in Mount Vernon High School. So let's talk about the elephant in the room, and that is getting Mount Vernon High School off the list or getting to a school in good standing. So there are 2 indicators left that Mount Vernon needs to satisfy. What are those indicators, and what plans do you have in place in order to accomplish that?
Yep. So the 2 indicators are students with disabilities and our Hispanic students. So as it relates to meeting the metrics that Dr. Bennett-Conroy discussed just a few moments ago, we are held accountable for specific subgroups of students when they're not meeting certain metrics. So what we've learned from the state under the new ESSA laws is that each student is now counted almost in a multiplied fashion. So some of our students with disabilities that would have in past years fallen into a cohort of students are now counted individually. And so what that does is it really forces us and really helps us to pay better attention to some of those details around those students with disabilities, particularly with attendance, performance on ELA and math, as well as graduation rate over a 4, 5, and 6-year period. So we've done a deep dive to begin looking at the students with disabilities, the Hispanic students, and how well they are performing, our ENL students or students that are arriving new to the country in some of those same indicators. One of the things that we took great pride in is the fact that we've shown so much growth in some of the other areas and some of the other indicators. So we are looking forward to concentrating on just those last 2 indicators to be an overall school in good standing.
And point well taken, and I want to make sure that we don't minimize at all the work that you and your team have done here at the high school, and that is the progress made in those other indicators. How are you making certain that as you address these 2 remaining indicators, that you maintain the momentum established in the indicators where you have made success and move those indicators to an acceptable level?
Yep, so one of the things that we've done over the last few years is taken a really, really deep dive in terms of what each individual student looks like on a whole. Mm-hmm. So we have data walls all throughout our school building. I have data walls printed inside my conference room, inside school counselors' offices, inside our administrators' offices, so they could get a snapshot of each individual student and where they are performing academically, but also what subgroup indicators we need to pay very close attention to for each and every student. So that's one of the things that we've been able to employ over the last few years to help us pay better attention to some of those details. And what we're looking forward to doing over the next few years is, and particularly from January of this year through June of this year, to make sure that we do target those students that need the support, is to make sure that that data is more widely recognized. One of the things that we've reflected on is perhaps our all of our teaching staff and teaching assistants and secretarial staff and all of those that come in contact with students, they may not be as well versed in that data as some of the teachers are or
Good
administration.
point.
So we're taking some steps to do that. And so while we're doing that, we're making sure that you know, everyone has a good understanding of it, but that everyone knows that every single student needs our support, not just those that we need to make sure meet those indicators.
Excellent. And as we roll out these 3 high schools of choice, Mount Vernon High School is designated as our CTE and International Baccalaureate program. Talk to me about where we are with the IB application, what it means, and then we're going to talk about the CTE offerings.
So the International Baccalaureate is certainly exciting. The application process is very arduous, as you clearly know from the signatures that we've required by your office. We have submitted the application and we are in training phases. So this past December, we sent a team of 7 teachers, administrators, and counselors down to Washington, D.C. for a weekend so that they could be trained on some of the implementation philosophy around IB. They are now serving as turnkey trainers for a larger part of our staff. We've created a small cohort of dedicated individuals, really beginning with teachers of grades 9. The International Baccalaureate program is really broken up into 2 very, very distinct sections for high school. So it's the diploma program, which really begins in grades 11 and 12, and those are the higher level courses. And then there's more of a philosophical approach called the MYP, the middle years program, which is changing philosophy and what people think about education and what some of those educational strategies can look like in grade 9. So those were some of the folks that we sent off to training. We have a scheduled visit to a school coming up in February. We're actually whittling down the list of schools that we would like to visit because we'd like to make sure that it's one that looks like Mount Vernon High School, feels like Mount Vernon High School, has a lot of the same demographics, and is implementing International Baccalaureate successfully.
And I think one of the prerequisites that has helped to set the climate for the International Baccalaureate program to be successful, and just for our viewing audience, we need to be clear that the IB program is a very rigorous, high-level, high-demanding program that captures the best and brightest students to make sure that we are, in fact, offering a very competitive curriculum. But setting the foundation for that has been the implementation of AVID, which is designed to identify those youngsters who are on the cusp and need those extra strategies and that extra push. How has AVID helped set the framework for the onboarding of the International Baccalaureate program?
Right, so a lot of the philosophy associated with AVID and their curricular approach is directly aligned to what International Baccalaureate speaks to. So for example, those 9th grade years that are extremely important in terms of the IB philosophy are similar in AVID in terms of making sure that the students learn how to take notes, learn how to learn how to ask questions in class and of themselves so that they can begin to identify some of those areas that they feel as though they need help. It puts a lot of accountability on the student, and typically in large comprehensive high schools like ours, students haven't been accustomed to that. So one of the things that has helped us really become successful in AVID is the way that the district specifically rolled it out by starting in some of the lower grades so that our students, by the time they come into high school, learn some of the strategies that are associated with appropriate note-taking, and we've adopted Cornell notes. We have 3-column notes, and there are a few different other strategies that AVID has recently adopted, but that is very helpful for the students to come in with those skill sets. We have seen that the data shows us that more of our AVID students are enrolled in some of the upper level courses that we currently offer. And so moving away from advanced placement courses into IB, we will continue to see the trend of students that have participated in AVID matriculate into those upper level courses so that they can continue on the journey of achieving those college credits. That is one of the ultimate goals of IB. So when students are enrolled in some of these dual enrollment programs and dual enrollment courses that we will offer and that we do offer, they have an opportunity to both get high school credit as well as college credit. And so having those AVID strategies and rolling that right into IB is something that we look forward to.
Awesome. So let's shift gears and talk about CTE. So we have our Performing Arts Magnet program, we have the STEAM Academy, and then we have this very robust CTE offering at Mount Vernon High School that we have really had to almost start from scratch, if you will, in order to rebuild. So what are some of the offerings now, and how do you anticipate the expansion of that under your leadership?
Right, that's a great question, because that's where we are spending a lot of our time and effort. So we're working with some consultants to help us identify where we can expand. and where we may need to cut back, quite frankly. And so Dr. BC mentioned some of the partners that we've had to help us along that work. We've met with folks from Southern Regional Education Board, SREB, which is a world-renowned CTE organization, and they help us focus our efforts around how we're scheduling students into the courses, what sections we currently have that we can pour more resources into, where would it be fiscally responsible to pour some additional resources as opposed to not. So we are currently doing everything from analyzing the job market placement to figure out, do we need to continue to offer courses like barbering and cosmetology, or do we need to start paying a little bit closer attention to some of the IT types of courses, and how students that graduate high school can roll into one of these job placements and begin making I think it's called a comparable wage, and so they have options. So we are looking forward to helping to expand our engineering courses. We have paid special attention to the IT courses in terms of Cisco. And you know, this beautiful TV studio that we're sitting in is certainly one of the places where we will continue to pour resources into.
I think that's awesome. More importantly, because the world is changing so rapidly and there are multiple pathways to success. College-bound and going into a career where you can make a comparable and competitive wage, and a combination of both. I had the good fortune of visiting a school in North Carolina where their CTE program was so robust that students were able to go right into the workforce and secure jobs, and those businesses made a commitment to support their college education after they had completed a year of education. And those are the kinds of the opportunities I like to see for our students here at Mount Vernon High School. I think you've done a Herculean job with addressing some of the issues at Mount Vernon High School and getting us back on the right track. I anticipate that next year we will be celebrating Mount Vernon High School being a school in good standing under your leadership, with the support of my office, of course, and the members of our cabinet. I also want to commend you for really taking control of your building and managing crises and dealing with those youngsters who continue to go against the code of conduct, if you will, to restore order so that education can happen in our building. So thank you so much for being on our show, and more importantly, thank you for being a part of this vision.
Thank you, Dr. Hamilton.
In our next segment, we'll be closing out, so we'll be right back. Stay tuned. We've had a great show today. I'm excited to announce that next week we will have a Facebook Live interactive session where I will be having a live chat and chew with our community. So please log on to our Facebook next week, Tuesday, January 29th, beginning at 6:30 p.m. We'll be live from 6:30 to 7:30 p.m. on Facebook, and I'll be taking your questions and answering them live. Well, that's all the time we have today. Please join us next time as we welcome Assistant Superintendent of Buildings and Grounds and our district senior architect, who will provide an update on the implementation of the bond projects and how we will implement the 2020 vision and where we stand in relationship to accomplishing all the great things that we set out to do upon my arrival in the Mount Vernon City School District. Thank you so much for tuning in on Supt Scoop, and we'll see you next time. Be safe.